Yeah. Good morning, everyone. How are you? How was last night? Looks like that for some of you, the sun is really bright this morning. So we will start soon with some small changes, as you see. So you will have to check the board. In fact, we will start with the sessions directly after that. Just a small reminder, there is a huge demonstration in Paris, and they may come quite close. So we will keep you aware about it, but you may not be able to take the subway directly with the same stations. So you may have to walk 1 or 2 stations to go away from here. So we will keep you updated in the afternoon, so you can be sure to take your plane to go back home. So now we have a small message from someone who will leave SpaceUp Earth pretty soon. So I will let him talk.
Good morning from Star City. My name is Luca Parmitano and I am an Italian ESA astronaut. And I'm very honored and privileged to be the next ESA astronaut to fly to the International Space Station. As a matter of fact, in just a few days I will be riding a Soyuz spacecraft, and then I will board the ISS, where I will spend the next 6 months. It's always a great pleasure to see so many people passionate about space, because guess what, I am very passionate about space too. And I am particularly happy that ESA took the initiative to host the SpaceUp Paris at its headquarters and give you all this opportunity to get together and discuss a wide variety of fascinating space-related topics. I know I've already met some of you in Cologne or in Rome, and I'm counting on all of you to spread the word about my Italian Space Agency mission, Volare, on the social networks and in real life. I would love to spend more time with you, but I'm quite busy right now. I have a tight schedule to follow and still have a few more items to cross off my checklist before the launch. So I wish you all a great event in Paris, and who knows, maybe I'll see you at a future SpaceUp once I'm back on Earth.
So we will start with T-5 talks, but before, we would like to have a presentation from the people who will present something today. So can you all come up here and say...
Not the T-5. Only
yeah, not the T-5s, only the full-time sessions. Mets-le un peu plus sur le côté parce que... Please, come back here. Commencer après, c'est clair.
So good morning to all of you. We know each other from yesterday morning, and I will be talking about an idea which is in my head for quite a long time, is how to bring excitement for space exploration back.
Good morning, and I will talk about interactive exhibitions. We will try to invent together an interactive exhibit about space, and I will talk about it a little bit more on T-5. So.
Okay. Hi. So I'll talk about commercial space stations and space hotels. So first, I'll try to present a bit the subject, and then try to discuss about it.
Good morning. I'd like to share with you a very exciting experience. For me, maybe I can go out of space, out of orbit with a prize I won. And I like to tell about innovating in the Netherlands and some things about my work, sharing space with education. I'd like to see you.
Hi, I'm Alex CG on Twitter. Some of you might be following me, I hope, and some of you more now. I'm going to talk about how you can actually get hands-on and make cool DIY space stuff. and be part of the open source space revolution.
Very cool. I hope my talk is not in the same slot as yours.
We're going to do a team up.
That's true. Hi, I'm Alex, Starling Alex on Twitter. I'll be talking about space debris. I had the chance to attend the Space Debris conference in April, and I didn't know anything about that subject before. So if you're as clueless as I was last month, then come to my talk and you will learn a little bit about space debris.
Hi, I'm going to talk about an open source CubeSat project I'm currently involved in, and how can our community design innovative space technology.
Hi, I'm Remy. I met some of you guys yesterday when we talked about the SGAC. While talking with some of you, I've been convinced to make a presentation I was not thinking of doing about how we work together at ESA Aztec to make better space missions, doing some very cool communication type of activities.
Hi, I'm Rick Martin. I'm going to make you a little presentation, in fact, a kind of lecture about orbital operation and launcher design and staging by using a little video game to reach the moon.
Good morning, my name is Jarosław, Emperor Jarek on Twitter. I will speak about impact of the ESA educational programs.
Hi, my name is Piotr Lewkowicz. I will talk about the space geeks which catch the dream about their own company.
Hi, I'm Ludivine Bourg-Sauvant. I think if you are here today, maybe you can do more, like living the same kind of atmosphere with lots of international space geeks for several days. I will talk about space summer schools. I've done 3 of them, and I think it's a really good thing to do to have like this great atmosphere for like several weeks.
Thank you.
Last presentation in this room.
And we will have another session at, sorry, I can't see it, 1:50, if I see that, about the CVA. It's one of the summer school by Jean-Luc Bozet. So thank you, and I think we will start the T-5 sessions now.
C'est qui le premier T-5 ?
So Diogo Alvim, we will start with you.
Tu te mets debout pour le faire? On peut pas. You want to be to stand up? Okay. Okay. You have this mic. Yeah. Ready? Let's just wait. Yeah. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Diogo Alvim. I'll be taking you through this presentation. The title is Disruptive Space Exploration. Now I want to start up by telling you about all of these companies, these institutes, and these agencies. We all know them. I call them the big ones. They are the ones responsible for the space exploration. And they are also, for me, and I think for most of you, the dream makers. They are the ones that made me come here today, and they are the ones who are hosting, actually. But they have a problem, I think. They have really slow development cycles. They don't take a lot of risk. They have really high cost projects. And let's be honest, there's a lot of politics involved. So me and my colleagues, we decided that we need a new approach. We need to reinvent how we talk and we do space exploration. And this time, I think that we need to take everyone, not only the space enthusiasts, not only the space geeks, like everyone. And we want to do this just because we can. There was a time before, 50 years ago, that we did it because we wanted. And we want to bring this again. And we want to go big with small resources. So how are we thinking about doing this? How are we thinking about going about this? So we want to build or use these really large satellite clouds with small satellites, and we want to go and get the information that they take from the Earth or that they take from the stars, information, just that. And after that, we want to build a web platform. So on this web platform, we will put all this information. And all this information will be arranged in a simple and more friendly way so that web developers and third-party consumers can just go, pick it up, and make something out of it. It's pretty simple, and I think it will work pretty easily if you just let people try and do something about it. So here you can see a small diagram of how it will work. It looks quite simple, of course, but we know that it will be a big endeavor. So we just take the information, we put it on the platform, and anyone, you all, if you want, you can make something out of it. You can make something about education, you can make something just for fun. It doesn't matter, as long as you do something. So what we're really into is to make space progress and make it faster, way faster than it is today. And so we have a small diagram there just to show you, and I want you to focus on the technology and progress. Sorry, passed away. So who are the stakeholders? So the universities, we are really interested because they are the beacon. They are the ones who provide us and the information. They are the ones who provided the knowledge. And we want them to be able to go faster and further. Of course, the web companies, because we have to reach out to everyone. And like we have seen today and yesterday, the Twitter and Facebook and all of the internet is what brings us together. And of course, we want to also influence the industry, and we want to open up a new market, a low-cost market, the same way that happened in aviation. So we want to bring that to space. And we really believe that that can happen. So we have already an example. It's called Rosetta. So it lets you look through the eyes that see the world. This application is already in progress. And it will enable you to take pictures from space and just put it somewhere. The drive is this meme. I think we all know what a meme is. And what I want to tell you, what's wrong here, is that Neil Armstrong didn't have the same opportunity that that girl had 40 years ago. So that's just wrong. And we want to change that. So we want to give you a rewarding, cheap, global, social, easy to use, and empowering experience. And of course, most of all, we want it to be fun. We want you to really enjoy what you're just doing. So you already have some pictures here, some examples of what we're trying to do. This is just a mock-up of the application that we are trying to put out there. In the next slide, you'll be able to see that I've come to Paris. And I've already shared that image with my friends. Joker is trying to put some action into the picture, but Batman came along and said, no, you're not doing anything. So just to conclude, we want to build this platform and give everyone a chance to get involved in space. Not only the space geeks, but really everyone. And anyone can take part. There you go. So my name again is Diogo Alvim, and you can contact me. You can join us, and you can share what you think about our presentation, what you think about our idea. Thank you for your time.
Hello everyone, I'm Paolo, and I want to talk about crew training today. I train pilots, hoping they become future astronauts. And it is a particular presentation because I want to focus about what is good in crew training. As you see, this is my flight school, and I generally started as a pilot almost 20 years ago. Now I'm an instructor and also airline and helicopter pilot. And last but not least, I am satellite ham radio. My call sign is Italy Zulu 1, Papa Oscar Zulu, IZ1 POZ. And my Twitter handle is Omoday, if you want. That's a normal experience for a civil pilot. I have about 10,000 hours total time on more than 20 types of airplanes, both propellers, jets, and copters. And in the next slide, you will see attack cloud. I've flown the old-fashioned MD-80, DC-980, and also the new one, like the A320. Some helicopters, some light planes, and so on. So at least I know what I'm saying about aviation and instruction. These are our principles in crew training: scientific method, solid theoretical instruction, and repetita iuvant to build skill. Repetita iuvant is Latin, means something like practice make perfect. And we only use solid and accepted teaching methods because some other teaching methods do not provide good results. We tested them, but we like the older one. And the theoretical instruction, of course, is the only way to assure the capability to people to operate in unexpected situations, and the one you can find in air or in space, like emergency, first of all. Repetita iuvant because there is the only way to build the skills. You have to practice there alone. We can explain a student how to recover from a spin, but he have to test it a lot of time to be capable of do that. Simulators are useful, and especially in a complex environment, they have to be used. In the next slide, you will see the time compared between the real time of flying on the real things, that is in blue, and in red you will see the time on the simulator. More complex the machine, more time on the simulators. So here is it. And on the left it is the training for private pilot. On the right is the training for an airline tape rating. So it is almost every time flown on simulators. But sims are not like the real things, of course, because there is a big deal with accelerations. Simulations can be very useful, but some vertical accelerations are not possible to be simulated, and there is no way to simulate that acceleration. So even if they are a perfect copy of the spacecraft they reproduced, they still have limits, and this is one of the causes of the complex process of selection for candidates in astronaut training. They have to be very efficient in doing their jobs, even if in high or very low acceleration, like the microgravity case on the ISS and other environments. So a job done at 1G on Earth is not the same job at 0G or at high G load. What about the future? The training community, school training community, is responsible to train people, even if they will not become astronauts, but they have to become good workers, and they have to know theoretical principles, and they have to be excellent when working. So they have to have excellent skills. And the future will be in the hands of trainer, in my opinion. Since the very basic primary schools, we have to start them as a kid to be good worker in the future. These are my contacts, and we are very happy to be in contact with you all every time. Don't feel shy about contact us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, this is a story that began during SpaceUp Europe last September. So I was, I guess, like anyone, not working into space, and just wondering how can I contribute to making space travel possible for all. So during SpaceUp Europe, we learned a lot about curiosity and Mars exploration, so that was great. But it was a great reminder as to how far we are to Mars, we humans are to Mars, through national space agencies. We also learned a lot about SpaceX. No, I mean SpaceX, Elon Musk, applauses. But the thing is, even Elon Musk talks about a cheap $500,000 trip to Mars. So that's still out of reach for us. And then there was the final presentation was from Mars One, so it's basically free for the participants. But well, only a handful out of us are going to be chosen. So the thing is, Mars remains a very small dot far, far away for the majority of us, for the very vast majority of us. So the question is, how can you and me reach and contribute to going to Mars? So that was one question asked during SpaceUp Europe. So precisely, how can you and I contribute to making space exploration advance? And the common question, common answer we came up with was, let's get to Mars the open source way. So it can seem crazy to say we're going to Mars in open source, but actually, at least there was a real project which was going to suborbital space ongoing, which is from Copenhagen suborbitals. These guys are based in Denmark, and they are building open source rockets. And they do plan to get into space in open source, and they have actually already launched rockets into space in open source. But the thing is, they're based in Denmark, so it's a bit far away for us, and you have to be in Denmark to contribute to Copenhagen suborbitals. So what's open source space? Today, one of the big open source space organization is Mach 30 in the US. So, but they are close to non-US citizens, so we could not join them. So we did start a project of our own based on an existing site which was called Open Aerospace, which we used, and we set out to begin a way to Mars in open source. So we did a lot of research, at least we tried to do a lot of research of what was already existing, because the big issue with open source is, well, at least the big rule you have to do to build on what is existing. But we had some big challenges. So first of the challenges was managing human resources and motivation. We were 5 at the beginning. At the end, we were maybe 2 or 3, or 1 in the weekly hangouts. And the next big challenge was, how do we turn ideas or discussions into realities, into actual space hardware or actual results. So that was also a challenge. And the last one was, and we did not get that far, but one key challenge of open source hardware projects is violating, or the risk of violating intellectual property and many other regulations which you may face with. We could not join Mach 30 because Mach 30 is a US-based organization, and they are constrained by restrictions on arms exports. That was an issue. So in the end, we spent 7 months doing, we're getting to a blank thing. So you can say, okay, we did not achieve anything. We just wasted a lot of time. But well, I think it's a good, you learn a lot from your failures. And so then, how do you start anew? So we've discovered a lot about the existing open source hardware projects. And they are guys who are doing not space, actual space hardware, but they are doing open source hardware on Earth. For example, the Global Village Construction Set by Open Source Ecology, they are building 50, not 40, industrial machines currently in open source. So they are doing real open source hardware. This applied to space is, for example, OpenNautics. So that's a new site which is coming from another one which failed before. Well, there's a lot of failures, but then it's it goes on. And so OpenNautics plans to build rockets in open source. And one of the trends which is going to help open source space is the emergence of makerspaces. So, okay, now what can you do? So first, do not wait for SpaceX to get you into space. Even though I love Elon Musk, I mean, he's not going to make, or probably not me or you, into space in the short term. So you have to do something. So come with Alex CG or with me this afternoon to discuss open source hardware. Thank you. So now it's Michal. Michal Piadlowski. Ok. Pardon? Bon alors non, c'est ouais, c'est Michel. Bah, il est pas là. Bon. Ok, so Dragos.
Hello everyone, my name is Dragos Pon, and I'm an employee of HE Space. I'm just gonna talk to you briefly about our company. So I work as an external employee to Astrium Space Transportation in Bremen. I wanted to say a few things about why I got into space personally. I know everyone here has their own reasons, and there's an infinity of reasons out there. Personally, it's been these three people that have inspired me, particularly because I come from where Hermann Oberth was born. So when I was a kid, my father took me and showed me this is the place where everything started. So I got really inspired by that. Now our company has started in the United States and then expanded into Europe. Our customers are mainly Estec and also ESA and Astrium. In Europe, we have sites in the Netherlands and Germany, and of course the United States. I wanted to talk to you about getting your first job. Personally, I started with an internship, and I guess that's the way to go when you finish your studies and you have this opportunity of getting into your workplace. That may be the best way to go. And you can wait in your opportunities. And of course, most graduates leave their first job after 18 months. This is a statistic that I didn't personally find, but my experience was that if you're having less than 3 years experience, it's a bit difficult to get into a new job. So if you're looking for a new opportunity, it's better to wait a bit. Typical good candidate for HE Space would be, of course, a EU national, good English skills. International experience is very important. And as I was saying, more than 3 years of industrial experience. Especially being happy to be an engineer or technical in general, okay? Since you're here, I guess this slide doesn't apply to you because you have to be active, you have to go to conferences, meet people, network, and that's the best way to go. And of course, join societies and organizations such as SGAC, as we were talking about yesterday, or Women in Aerospace, of course. Be a volunteer and yeah, make your thesis in a space company. What type of job you can get? Of course, entry-level jobs, as I was saying, they're rare, so you should get an internship. Of course, and if you're trying to get a post in ESA, you will need a lot of experience, so a lot of waiting time. Okay, if you could. Okay. These are a few tips for your CV, okay? You have to have a maximum of 3 pages, use a good photo, and okay, if you could go faster. Okay. Yeah, okay. So these are our information. Please get in touch with us if you're interested in having, in looking for a new challenge and a new opportunity. Thank you.
And so now it's Mark Bentley. Just
perfect. Yeah, yeah. On the right side. Okay, good morning. I want to try and tell you in the next 5 minutes a little bit about Rosetta, which is a European Space Agency mission, and we are going to land on a comet. And this is absolutely insane, and I just want to tell you how cool it is, and that we're going to need your help to really promote this and to get the message out there to everyone, just how insanely cool this is. So I work for the Austrian Academy of Sciences. I'm one of the instruments on board, but today I'm just going to talk about the mission. So at the top of the slide here, you see all the comets that we've visited with spacecraft so far. Now, comets are fantastic because they are built in the early ages of the solar system, and they basically, hopefully, maintain particles of matter that was formed at that time unchanged. And conveniently, they come and visit us in the inner solar system every so often. So we can visit them with a spacecraft without too much hassle. And we've done this several times. You see, we've visited these 5 comets, one of them twice, and we've managed to take some snapshots of them as they fly on their merry way. But what you really need to do to understand the comet and to understand the keys to our solar system is to catch up with it before it becomes active. So comets basically spend most of their time far from the sun, they're very cold, they're inactive, then they get closer and they become crazy active. So we're doing this with Rosetta. Now we have 2 spacecraft basically. We have an orbiter, which you see here, which is, has like enormous wingspan of something like 32 meters from wingtip to wingtip, so you can imagine how big that is. And we're flying this around a comet. We're flying this somewhere where there is gas streaming away, there is dust streaming away, so this is pretty insane in itself. And we have 10 instruments on the lander, and we also have 10 instruments on the orbiter, and we also have a lander, which has another 10 instruments. And then there's 1 instrument with bits on both. So it's been a long trip, even though I say that these spacecraft come to the inner solar system to catch up with it, not just to fly by, but to rendezvous with it is a tough job. And we were launched in 2004. That means we've been almost 10 years underway. Now we're in hibernation because we're so far from the sun that even with 64 square meters of solar arrays, we just cannot get the power we need to keep us warm and alive. But on January the 20th, next year, I find out if I still have a job, and everyone else finds out if the spacecraft is healthy. So the hibernation ends, the wait is over, and then we have a crazy few months whilst we rendezvous with the comet. So once we get there, we put down this little beast. This is the Philae lander. I say little, it's 1 meter across and it weighs 100 kilos. And much as you heard yesterday that Gaia has no moving parts, wow, this thing is crazy with moving parts. It has legs that expand. It has ice screws on the feet to try and stop us moving around. It has a drill there, which is the gray box in the middle, which is going to drill down under the surface. It has, on the right, you see extending from a boom, this instrument which will hammer itself into the ground. It's a nail with a built-in hammer. This is insane. And landing on a comet is, let's say, non-trivial, I think is the nice way of putting it. So basically, we're rejected from the mothership, and we just head down to the surface. This is an unpowered descent. But getting down on the surface and staying there, I mean, staying there is not easy. This is a 100-kilo lander. It weighs a few grams on the comet. So to try and stay in one place, we have thrusters firing upwards to push us to the surface. We have two harpoons that fire themselves into the comet with tethers behind them. We have ice screws on the feet. I mean, just staying on the comet is not easy, let alone doing science there. But all being well, this is how we'll be after touchdown. I don't think it'll be quite this dramatic, but you know, artists' impressions like to exaggerate the situation. But so basically, we get down on the surface, and there's something called the first science sequence. So all the instruments get their chance to run, and then we have to go into a charge cycle where we wait to recharge our batteries before we do more science. But basically, we have every kind of instrument you can imagine, all packed into this lander. It has one of the highest fractions of payload mass to total mass of any, apart from Beagle 2 probably, of any lander out there. We have mass spectrometers, cameras, magnetometers, everything you can imagine. And just as a final slide, I'm just coming back to this, because this harpoon, I think, is just bizarre. I mean, people were trying to think, how do you stay to the surface? And so really, we shoot this barbed thing, this sharp, pointy harpoon into the surface. It goes down maybe 1 meter or 2, and then we have a motor that pulls back on the tether to really make you firm to the surface. Because after a while, comets are active. The closer we get to the sun, the more active Rosetta gets, and this thing is just, you know, going to start spewing off gas and dust, and we have to stay there. Okay, that's my time. Ask me questions later. Next year, November, we arrive and start doing science. It's going to be awesome. Thank you.
That's it. Ready? Okay. Let's go. So, hello everyone, I'm Michał Piądłowski, I'm from Copernicus Science Center and I'm engaged in building exhibitions and exhibits, interactive exhibits. It's a science museum. It's Copernicus, but it doesn't mean it's only about astronomy. The topic is quite broad, but we have planetarium. It's called Heavens of Copernicus. And there we... one of nice features is that you can each star separately. It's not like Milky Way, it's not a painting. But why I'm here? Because we have some free, empty and nice space and we'd like to make an exhibition. It of course will be connected to astronomy, to space, to many things that you know. And we don't know so much. So I wish you will help me to invent some, to find out some ideas, and I will make some better exhibition, maybe with you. So as I told you, I want you a little bit more than just telling me what you do, but also to come to my workshop and we will try to produce as much ideas for exhibits as we can. As you can see, it's a queue before the long night of museums to our Copernicus Science Center. So many people like interactive exhibits. So now, think what you have brought with you for this SpaceUp, what it is, what you are interested in, and try to remember it during my presentation. I will try to explain how to make good exhibit, how to imagine, try to imagine how it would be. But if you don't know how should be good exhibit, you have to remember only three things. It have to be intuitive, easy to use, engaging, and extremely durable because a lot of people use it. But before you make an exhibit, make the idea, you have to think about the message, what it is for, what's important for you. Go very deeply. Why are you interested in space? What is important for you? What are you sensitive to? What problems? The message of the exhibit should be quite short, I don't know, one sentence, and not too general, because later it's very useful. Okay, next. Good exhibit is simple to use. You see the exhibit and you have to clench your teeth, tap your ears, and you will hear the sound, for example, in this exhibit. And you may ask a question, maybe, okay, add some additional buttons to make hear other music. No, it's not good ideas. Look for your message, and if it's not important, some interaction is not important for you to gain the message, just don't do it. Hands-on, body-on interaction, when you feel the forces, when you touch something, it's good to use some physical interaction, or you can ask for people to think. You really can ask them to think during some exhibition. Give them ideas, for example, how to, like here, it's try to make a city which is comfortable, try to engage people, make exhibits demanding. Oh no, it's very hard. Okay, go on. So, as I said, many people in our science center, there are 1 million people using exhibits every year, so it have to be extremely durable. So we don't want to use very, yeah. Just to resume, important is the message and three features of exhibits: simple to use, engaging, and durable. And I invite you for a workshop. I will try to look for some ideas with you. I hope you will come. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. So that was the T-5 session for this morning. There will be another one this afternoon. And now we will start the session. Everything is shifted half an hour before, as it was displayed on your program. So we will start with the first sessions. I don't remember the names. Yeah. So you can go in room A, room B, and I'm not sure there's anything in the buzz room. So we will have to clean the mess after that?
Sorry?
We will have to clean the mess?
It's not a big mess.
Okay, now it's good.
It's edible mess.
Sorry.
Sorry.
So in this room, we are going to discuss space debris, and in room B, it's going to be about going to the moon with video games, you know, through video games, or with the help of video games. So,
Okay, hello everybody. Thanks for attending my session. I'm going to be telling you a little bit about space debris. And as I said in the intro before, I was attending the 6th European Conference on Space Debris last month at ESOC in Darmstadt. And before I didn't know anything about that topic, I just knew it was out there. And I would like to share a little bit of what I learned with you today. So, does anybody of you have an idea how many launches there have been since this little thing went up there? Just a guess? Yes. Thank you. And with these 5,000 launches, we launched about 6,500 satellites. And you could say, well, that's not that much, but it's not only these 6,500 satellites that were launched. They bring a lot of stuff that they need to get up there, and they leave it up there, which is the upper stages that they actually use, so they're also floating around there. And there's also lots of other stuff out there in space, and you actually wouldn't believe what there is floating around. So sometimes astronauts just lose their tool bags, and maybe sometimes even they lose their gloves. And then also, you wouldn't believe that actually when they were in Mir, they just would take their trash and put it in bags and just dispose their bags just into space. So, and the most crazy thing probably that is said to be floating out there, I don't know actually how that happened, but is a toothbrush that is also floating in space. And of course, I mean, all those things are not, they're just a few of those, although recently I think the toothbrush has become the tool of choice to repair the space station. And maybe there in the future are some more things out there. But there's other stuff that is actually more serious because it's more numerous. There's some little droplets of cooling fluids, mostly from Russian satellites leftovers, that are just floating around as droplets in space. Also, the reminders of solid rocket propellants, aluminum oxide chunks, little pieces, but also a little bit bigger. Slag, I think they call it, when the boosters burn out, is also floating around there, which poses a threat. And one thing that I found very intriguing was also that in the 60s there was an experiment which was called the West Ford experiment, or the West Ford needles, where they had the idea to launch needles into space to form an artificial ionosphere, which would help them with communications. So what they did is basically they're about this size. Of course, they're a lot thinner, but they're about this length. And they made 2 tests with that, and they launched 420 million each of these things up to an altitude to about 3,500 kilometers. So they're said to be, I mean, they're pretty light, but still, they're said to be, many have re-entered, but I don't think that all of them actually have. So there's almost 1 billion pieces floating around of this out there. And but as I said, the other parts there are not that many of those, but this is not really the big problem. What is the problem? First of all, these upper stages that are out there, because they still have some fuel on board, they will explode and they will create debris. And actually, you see what happens. Usually, creating space debris is not a good thing, but in that case, it is. So you can come and get that later. I have more in my bag. So actually, I have to tell you, this is like the childhood trauma, because every time somebody would pop a balloon, I would cry like crazy for the rest of the day. So I now managed to get over that. And it's not only those explosions, it's also, maybe you heard that there were some anti-satellite tests going on. And the latest, I think the last one that was, that has been done was the Fenyang destruction. And only that test created an additional 3,000 pieces that are bigger than 10 centimeters in diameter that can be tracked actually. And all the explosions that you have just seen, but also the collisions of those pieces that are floating around actually present the biggest threat. And in the past, there have been 230 explosions and collisions altogether, creating, again, another additional 9,000 bigger pieces of space debris. So the the number of trackable pieces that is said to be out there at the moment, bigger than 10 centimeters, is then of the order of 17,000 pieces. But the number of the smaller pieces between 1 centimeter and 10 centimeters is actually quite high already, about 700,000. And the pieces that are even smaller than 1 centimeter even is tens of millions of stuff floating around there. So, out of these parts, these millions of parts, at the moment there's only 1,200 functioning satellites out there, which are being threatened by all the other stuff that's floating around, including, of course, the space station is also exposed because it has a big area. And all in all, we have about 6,500 tons of mass out there. Oops, sorry. Okay. And the problem that I mentioned earlier is these are the collisions. These actually pose, of course, the biggest threat to the active spacecraft. And the threat gets bigger and bigger because these pieces out there, when they collide, the debris pieces, when they collide with each other, they create even more and even smaller pieces. And even if we would stop launching anything to space right now, we would still see a population growth of this space debris because this effect just keeps going on and on, so the critical mass has already been reached. And there have been independent simulations by all the space agencies, and you could say that they all came to more or less the same conclusion, that in the next 200 years you would have, if we do nothing, you would have an increase of about 30% in the population of space debris. Sorry, and that guy is actually Don Kessler, who came up with this theory in the first place, so that's him. It's called the Kessler syndrome. And you could say, well, actually, I forgot my balls over there, but yeah, well, you could say, well, it's not really a problem. You have one big, yeah, it's, it doesn't really have. What I wanted to show is, you throw one piece, and you throw 3 pieces, which I cannot do at the same time. So what is worse? You would say, well, but these 3 pieces, they are smaller and they're lighter, so they're not posing as big of a threat. Of course, the probability to get hit gets higher, but they should be lighter and they should not cause as much damage. But we're talking about speeds here that are of the order higher than 7 kilometers per second, because the first cosmic velocity of the stuff that was launched up there, which would have to stay in orbit. And you can see, this is just one little example it was a Challenger windshield. It was a long time ago already, but it's almost a hole, but it's a big damage to the windshield, which is about this big, which was just caused by a little tiny chip of paint. So you can imagine what, even at those speeds, what kind of damage you would see when this stuff hits satellite or any other, or maybe the ISS. Okay, so many small pieces are definitely worse than fewer large ones. And of course, you will have structural damage, not just to the windshield, but you have, of course, the shielding of the spacecraft needs to be really needs to withstand the impact of these pieces. And what I actually wanted to do here was show you a video from the Ernst Mach Institute, but which I didn't get on time, which would show you the brute force of an impact at a speed of about 7 kilometers per second. And you can see here what happens if just a little piece, as small as 1.5 centimeters, would do to a shielding. This is more or less the setup of the shielding that you would have on Columbus module. And it's too bad that I cannot show you that video, but it's just to show you that this is really a big danger to anything that's out there. The other, it's not just the structural damage. What also happens, even if smaller pieces of debris impact on satellites and active spacecraft, is that they create plasma. And the plasma, of course, it will be create a conducting environment, and then you have the risk that you can create a short. And this is actually, I think, they haven't realized that until very recently, that this could actually be the cause for some of the spacecraft just stop working because they have this electrical problem. Now, what is the distribution of the debris? We have a lot of stuff, a lot of objects in the low Earth environment, but it's not so much of the mass. So the mass is pretty much distributed evenly between LEO and GEO. And the big difference is that in LEO you would have a lot higher speeds than you would have in GEO. So I have here like a little demonstration. So this is in fact to scale. This is the Earth, as you can see. This little thing here is the ISS, about 400 kilometers above the surface. This is where LEO ends at 2,000 kilometers altitude, and that would be geostationary orbit at the end of that tip. And the moon would be about here. So you can imagine that there's a huge density of all this stuff which is floating around only in this little area. So and what is threatened by this? The big threat in the LEO is actually that you have many Earth observation satellites in polar orbits. So of course they do not all orbit at the same longitude. So one will orbit that way, the other will orbit that way, and then they have huge collision speeds. So just a few years ago there was one big collision, and the collision speed was 42,000 kilometers per hour. So it's incredible. And whereas in geostationary orbit, most of all the objects are of course move in the same direction at approximately the same speed. So the threat there, or the damage that can be done, is a bit less because the collision speed would only be about 2 kilometers per second or so. But out there we have, of course, the important stuff for our everyday life, like TV and communication satellites, and also the weather satellites are out there. So it's we cannot deal with debris either on that side or on the other side because everything is important, and what we need to do is we sort of need to get rid of that. I don't know how I'm on time. I don't know if I really need to talk about how the distribution is in low Earth orbit, but we see here there's a peak actually of the spatial density at around 800 kilometers of altitude, and the mass distribution looks a little bit the same, but that you can see that the most important zone to focus on would be between 800 and about 1,200 kilometers in altitude when we talk about distribution of debris in low Earth orbit. So what does it mean for ISS, for example? What's actually the risk of spacecraft being hit? So ISS is very big, has a huge area, but actually they would have to withstand 40 impacts a year of pieces that are between 1 millimeter and 1 centimeter. And pieces bigger than 1 centimeter, you might say the risk is not so big, but they have one impact every 25 years, but still, I mean, the lifetime of the ISS, the risk is there that it might actually hit, and a big-ass piece of that can maybe, depending on where it hits, do big structural damage. And what is the risk for the other satellites in low Earth orbit? Actually, the situation is quite bad. You would have one satellite is actually at the moment coming close to 10 objects, or closer than 2 kilometers to 10 objects each week. So that actually shows how big the problem is. And in fact, 2 days ago there was another collision of the only Ecuadorian satellite out there, which was I don't know what it hit. I think also a part of a Russian spacecraft, and it's still transmitting data, but it's tumbling, and I don't think they can recover it. So it's not a problem that would happen sometime in the future. It's there, and it's happening all the time. So actually we need to do something about it. But the problem is that stuff out there doesn't come down by itself necessarily. Well, it does come down, but it takes a lot of time. So the problem here is that it depends strongly, of course, on the altitude, because the density of the atmosphere, which gets thinner and thinner as you go, And at 600 kilometers, you would have an object floating around for 25 years, whereas when you go to 800 kilometers, it would already be out there for 200 years. And if you go to 1,000 kilometers, it would already be on the other 1,000 years up there. So what to do about that? Well, the people at this conference that I attended, of course, and it was people from all over the world. They all know that we need to do something right now, and you should start with avoiding to bring more or leave more stuff in orbit than you actually have to. So you need to design your spacecraft such that they will not stay in orbit for longer than 25 years, because everything below 25 years, the risk is fairly low statistically that it will hit something else. And the other thing is, as we have seen from the Castle syndrome, we cannot just leave the stuff out there as it is, because we need to actually start removing pieces from orbit if we want to prevent this cascading effect from going on. So first of all, mitigation, what can we do? You can avoid explosions by depleting all the remaining fuel that's out there when you have brought that thing to orbit. So you can prevent these explosions. And the other thing is you can actually retain enough fuel to actively deorbit at the end of the lifetime of a satellite. Or you can install devices that would increase the drag. But this is sort of like a little bit competing concept, because one is active removal and the other one is passive removal of that spacecraft from orbit. And as I said before, you need to design for demise, meaning you have to ensure breakup during reentry so that no big piece will actually fall down. But coming to this competing concept of active and passive deorbiting, well, the only concern there is actually why do we not just let every spacecraft deorbit by itself? So this is also, people might be a little bit scared when they think about, ooh, there's something coming down, might it actually hit me? So, but I tried a little bit of a calculation, of course. The experts in the room will probably say, well, these are totally wrong assumptions, but just demonstrating, I mean, there's, well, I don't know, 50 people in that room now? Do you feel scared? I don't think so. So, and this is only a risk of less than 1%. And if you look at the land surface that we have, the area is, you can read the number yourself, something with many zeros. And calculating, if you assume that every person needs about 1/4 of a square meter to stand on, then the possibilities that you get hit is about 4 times the number of square meters on Earth. And if you calculate a probability from that you will be hit is about 1.6 to times 10 to the negative 15. So that's a number that you cannot even imagine. But of course, you have to multiply that by 7 billion people. So the chance that one person on Earth gets hit is still about 0.001%. So you can decide for yourselves if you want to go for active debris or active deorbiting, which is probably a little more costly, or if you would want to take the chance to just install devices that increase the drag so the stuff comes down by itself and will hit somewhere on Earth. Okay, the remediation, we have to remove 5 to 10 pieces per year in order to maintain a level of the space debris population that we have at the moment to prevent the increase. And it is necessary that we act right away, because if we wait another 50 years, we will have to remove many more pieces than just this 5 to 10 per year. The problem is that all these removal techniques and technologies, they're still being developed. We're only in the very beginning, and there has not even been yet a demonstration mission. There's some in planning, but still, we're still at the very beginning, and we need to act as quickly as possible. There's a different concept which I would like to tell you a little bit more about, but we don't have the time. So there's robotic arms which uses clamps to actually rendezvous and then catch objects of debris and remove it. There's concepts where you attach a deorbiting kit, and then you have the little boosters that then do the active deorbiting. There's a cool idea to capture the spacecraft with a net, so you would just shoot a net and it opens and then flings around the spacecraft, and then you pull it. And there's even concepts where you shoot at it with a harpoon and you drag it behind you. And an ion beam shepherd, which is also kind of a cool device, but my favorite is actually it is not science fiction. There's actually concepts out there, and they also work, where you shoot charged particles at the stuff that you want to remove, and then with a magnetic beam, you actually drag it behind you. So that was my quick overview on space debris. I hope I haven't taken too much time. I have time? Okay, good. Okay, so this was just a very quick overview. I have started a blog after attending the conference, and I wrote my first blog post about the space debris, and you can find it if you like on skyhigh.net. And if you have any questions right now, I'll be very happy to answer them. Thanks. And if you want more candy, there's more.
Sorry, I just have a very good video.
Like you do?
Seconds.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
Can we show that?
Yeah, sure.
I just have a simulation which is taking just 10 seconds to see space debris around Earth. So it's just 10 seconds. I will show you that now. I will just unplug that so you can ask one question.
If there is one, that is.
It's clear that something needs to be done about space debris, and you've proposed lots of ways to do it. Is it also the case that upcoming communication satellites actually are being designed for active deorbit or something like that?
Yes, well, that's design of that mitigation. Well, there is actually there is no law or anything in place, but there is an agreement that you will have to design aircraft such that they will leave the orbit within 25 years, and that you should design for demise, meaning you have to ensure that the spacecraft will actually break up into smaller pieces and then completely burn up in the atmosphere when it re-enters. Okay.
So just one word about this video. It's a simulation made by ESA, and you will just show a collision between two satellites and the amount of debris after that.
This is one of the cool ESA videos. There's a really long one. When you go to Space and Videos on the ESA website, you can find many of those videos. I think there's very good illustration of that. Of course, the size of the debris there is exaggerated, but still that doesn't decrease the problem. There you can see how this orbit, this debris cloud, after an impact, after collision, will spread out. And this is also one of the problems. If it would all stay in the same place, then it would be easier. But as it spreads out, it increases the risk of hitting something else, of course. Okay, cool. Thank you. Okay, so here's candy. I have more, and if you could give me back all the stuff that I threw somewhere in the audience, would be great. Thank you.
A quick question, is Ingo Buff in here? Is okay, if I can, okay, I'm going to follow you then to get to him.
So now it's working together to make better space missions. And in room B, you have a topic about commercial space station and space hotels. And also in the small room Buzz, there is something about open source in space. But
All right. So it looks like a lot of people are still having a break, but let's get started. Hi guys, my name is Remy Chalex. I actually work at ISA Estec in the Netherlands, where I'm a systems engineer. And after chatting with some of you yesterday, I thought that actually, after some of the requests, that I could tell you a bit more about what I do for a living, which is somehow start the space missions and give birth to some of the space missions. And we use a very interesting methodology in there, and this is what's on the next 10-15 minutes I would like to explain to you guys. So I'm an engineer, I know. I'll try not to be boring, and I'll skip all the formulas, I'll skip all the boring engineering things, the all big wordings and so on, and just try to guys grasp the concept and the idea behind what we do. So this presentation is actually coming from what we call our info pack, on the websites on www.isa.int/CDF. CDF is the Concurrent Design Facility, and this is actually what I will be talking about. So see already, just as a small example, look at the title of a presentation made by engineers for engineers with engineers. It's boring. So concurrent engineering applied to space missions assessment, methodology and facilities. That makes me sleep. When I make this presentation, I already have troubles when I'm starting, but I'll try to make more fun for you guys. Okay, so obviously presentation needs a scope, otherwise it's not an engineering presentation, so this is what I will try to talk to you guys on the next minutes. So let's just talk about a first thing which is called concurrent engineering, and this is really awesome. This is really, really an amazing thing. Funny enough, at the end of this part, you guys will be thinking, hold on, that is normal. Don't people work like that? Isn't that natural? Well, spoiler alert, no. You will see it is such a natural way of working, but people don't actually work that way, and this is kind of very weird. It was a big shock to me when I started at ISA about, 8 years ago now. It's a shock to see that we still work in a very old-fashioned way. So, traditionally, the way of working is referred to as over the fence. And the way it would work would be you will have some nice guys in a suit, some, let's call them the customers. They would then go and see one person, which is the engineer, and then we'll explain to this person. So, yeah, sorry, I'm doing an analogy with aviation because I'm a pilot, so I have the tendency to always slide a bit on the aviation side. But let's just imagine you have the customer that goes to you and say, hey, please build me, in this case, a small aircraft for cheap. Then this guy, if he is working like that, will go and talk with the next engineer, which will do his work and go to the next engineer. So let's imagine, goes to propulsion engineer, then it goes to the structure, the airframe engineer, and then they start giving each other their work, they start explaining what they have been doing, they start explaining what is necessary to be done, this type of things. And then you keep going, you keep going, you keep going, but the problem is, you have walls between those persons, you have fences, and this is why we call that over the fence. So people give an information over the fence to the next person, just telling him, okay, this is what we've been requested to do, and this is my part. I've done that, you deal with it. Now this is your problem, and then you go on the process to talk to the others. The problem there is everybody has a different understanding. If you're a structures engineer, you will be focused on the structure. If you are the aerodynamics guy, you will think about the wings. If you are the propulsion engineer, you will think about the engine. You can do an analogy of all that to the space sector. All those are applicable also to the space sector. The issue there is very simple. When the last person goes to the customer,
so the person which is paying, which has been asking you to do this study, well, guess what? When you ask for a small aircraft for cheap, they will come back with an A380 that's going to cost you about 200 times what you wanted to spend originally. And that's going to make a customer extremely unimpressed. Therefore, you have to restart the process again, and slowly, hopefully, you're going to get into converging towards the original design. The evolution from this over-the-fence approach is what we call, oh yeah, sorry, I always forget about this slide. This is a very, very nice example of aircraft which was designed specifically with an engine point of view. So, as you can see, clearly the pilot was kind of forgotten on the approach. And we have this problem nowadays. We do some systems, some space systems, forgetting the users, for example. Because we don't talk to the user, we don't get the good input from the user in terms of what do they really want. So, as I said, the evolution is what we refer to as centralized engineering. In this case, the nice guys with the suit, again, they will be talking to, this time, a first person, which they will be going back and forth. So not only will tell them, they will tell him what they want, but they will all the time be communicating with this guy, trying to understand the evolution and so on. Now, this centralized guy, in this centralized engineering approach, will be talking to the various engineers. So you have one central point that starts talking to everybody else. And they exchange information. So quickly, this central person, that we refer to as the systems engineer, will be able to understand what is happening in the overall system and immediately try to affect the design and get feedbacks from the customers in order to optimize the design. Well, this is what is done in most of the projects nowadays. You have a system engineer or a team of system engineers on a center that are managing the technical aspect. And this is basically the definition of systems engineering. The problem there is you are still relying on the central person. If you lose a central person because he or she is sick, then you have a problem. Other problem, if this is a mechanisms engineer, for example, he or she will think everything is mechanisms related. Therefore, you will end up having still a mission being steered a certain way because you have certain preferences. This is why we have the last version, which is the more awesome of all of them. You keep the centralized engineering approach, but then what you do is you allow everybody to communicate within the team, but not only. You also let everybody communicate with the customer. Everybody in the team can ask and exchange questions to everybody, including the customer, in order to really try to get as quickly as possible to the optimized result. Unfortunately, if you think about it, if we put everybody here on the room, and then we just say, let's design a mission to do that, what's going to happen? Even if you have 4 or 5 persons here that will be dealing with the technical management of that, well, it's going to be a mess. And trust me, it will be a mess very, very quickly. This is why what we do is we add an extra person, which we refer to as the team leader. And he or she will be there to facilitate. In the same way, you will have an orchestra, a conductor, that will be there saying, now this is your part, now this is your part, now you do the solo, now everybody works together. This is the concept. You have this person in the center that tries to harmonize the overall work. So, does that seem logic to you? Okay, I see some person saying yes and no, probably because you have some experience, you know how things actually work in reality. But the problem is, this is natural. This is how we all communicate. We all go to each other, we ask questions to each other. If I want to know about a payload question about some like dark physics behind it, I'll go to Mark and I'll ask him about that and then he will help me. If I want to know things about the structures, then I'll go to Dragos and I will talk to him, even if I am the thermal engineer. This is natural. Unfortunately, it's not what's done, and it's still not how it's done. Fortunately, at ESA, we do it. We use concurrent engineering for the early phase of the projects, and this is where I work, and I'm one of the team leaders or one of the systems engineers of those activities. And I would just like to show you a bit the facility and the tools that we have for that. So, okay, well, that was just a bit of a summarize about the different type of approaches. So the more you go towards a concurrent work, the more it's a natural and efficient way of working. And you have less single point failures to actually pretty much no single point failures. So really a very, very natural way of working. So if I had to define concurrent engineering, I will actually not use that definition. This is the definition which is used by the manager of the facility. Long and boring, I would say working together at the same place at the same time. Concurrently, we all work together to achieve a goal, a specific goal. This is my personal definition about concurrent engineering. All right. Another very, very good example of engineers doing PowerPoint presentations is some absolutely fantastically boring presentations. We have here a very nice example of what we call the spiral model, which theoretically is a good idea. But see, I mean, when I see that, I don't even want to explain to you what it is, because this is just, you see some points moving, so it's kind of nice, it's animated, awesome, and then you see it getting close to the center, and then you are at the center. Wow, fantastic, right? And the dots change color at the end. What? Yeah, I know, well, awesome. What that means is we all sit together concurrently. We work together to achieve this goal. Slowly, by having a systematic approach, we touch every single topic which are required for the design of a space mission. We see the implication of one with the other. We see the evolution, and slowly we converge towards, and let's say, I should not use the word optimized, but we converge toward a decent conclusion. So, see, I just used some simple words, and as engineers, we will be using fantastic PowerPoint slides. So we try concurrently together to actually conclude into the best solution. To do that, we obviously need to exchange data in addition of talking. So just imagine that you have a bunch of engineers seated together. One of the guys will actually be working, produce the results. He takes the results, puts that into a centralized location. At that point, the information is available to everybody. So anybody can access this information. Let's imagine the mass of an equipment, the power usage of an equipment, and then they will be working with their equipment. And from there, they produce their own result. And then just imagine that into a very nice integrated environment where everybody is getting information, sending information. Slowly, you do this convergence that I was talking about. We have obviously nice computer systems behind, based on Excel. So I can hear some laughs in the room when I say Excel. Fortunately, this is the simplest tool that you can use, because not everybody like you guys are motivated or into new technologies. I have engineers that actually still come with the pencil and the paper during our studies. And they say, here's the results. Like, can you put that into the model? It's like, the what? So we need to work with all that, because we need to work together to achieve a greater goal, which is defining space missions. So ESA, we do it using what we call the concurrent design facility, and this is the cool part. This is the concurrent design facility. It looks like a control room of a space mission, but it's not. It's way earlier. What we will do in the CDF is feasibility studies of the future missions. We would sit in teams, and using truly modern equipment, truly modern technologies, we can exchange these informations between each other, and we can actually optimize the design process and make sure that we are communicating efficiently. Again, perfect example of a slide made by an engineer, fonts way too small, boring, and yeah, I don't even want to tell you what it is. What I can tell you is we exist since about, what, 10, 12 years. We have done 150 studies, and we are actually very, very efficient, and we have touched everything, every topic from the launcher to the sample return missions, going through payloads for the station. But the important thing is this chart there. Like everywhere at ESA, we have a life cycle of missions. A birth, an evolution, a death. The birth is the idea. An idea can be either from our stakeholders or internal. Then we assess this idea, and this assessment is either done in the industry or it's done at ESA, and then if it's done at ESA, it's through the CDF. So we are present into all the different phases of the life cycle. I'm not going to get into too much details there because we don't really have the time. But as you see, the life cycle of a mission is quite a lot. It spans towards like maybe 20, 30 years at times. And there is a reason for that I'm going to touch in a second. I know that everybody here is motivated and thinks that we are too slow into doing space. We need to go faster and do more cool stuff. But the problem is that we simply don't have the time. All right, so CDF is involved in all the different phases. But why do we have all those phases? Is if you take a mission like this one that we launched a couple of years ago at ESA, we had an Ariane 5 launcher, we had Herschel and Planck. The overall mission was costing about 1 billion. Imagine if it fails, you as stakeholder, you as people that are providing us with the money will not be very happy. So we need to take a very stepped approach and try to do things slowly. In the comparison, a communication satellite is 200 to 300 million euro plus the launch. Anyway, as I said, we've done 150 studies nowadays. The first one of the studies that we have done that's flying now is Proba V. We have a lot of different missions like Solar Orbiter that's currently into development. So again, 150 missions. We have even studied launchers, payloads for the station, and so on. So again, a great example of a presentation from, made by engineers. So let me skip that. So this is the previous facility, was destroyed and replaced by a cutting-edge facility that you have here, where you have 2 design rooms. Actually, this one is the design room A that you can see there. We have a 6 meter by 2 meter projection wall that allows you to show stereoscopic images. You have people that have projection screens all around them. You can even see on the glass wall behind, you actually can project the details about the space mission. So truly like a control center. I will skip that, a small video, but we don't really have the time here. We also have a secondary design room where we can do smaller studies. Meeting rooms, a lobby where you can talk about everything, the secret meeting room, which is where we have the coffee, and then we have some archive and some computer rooms. As I was saying before, I think, in my opinion, what fuels space missions is coffee, not propellants, but okay. All right, so I'm going to skip all that. Actually, it's not so interesting. It's the whole process, etc. But what I want you guys to remember is we're taking care of your money at ESA. We try to be efficient when we do the planning of the future space missions. We try to choose them in a logical way, to try to make sure that they are feasible when we go to the industry. Different facilities in Europe that can do that. If you guys are interested, check our website. You will see actually the link to all those facilities. And if you want to work in systems engineering and concurrently, check that out. I think I'm going to stop there, but I hope you understood the concept that we try to be efficient when we work, and we try to all work together concurrently in order to make better space missions. And I hope I have not bored you. Thank you. I don't know if you have time maybe to one or two questions, but...
Just one question.
Yeah, how do you go about when missions can go longer than you expected to? For example, I don't know, you showed us the whole process, but where do you get back into the old process in case there's something, you know, you can just use a satellite longer than you expected?
That's the design process.
Okay.
So let's say it's early on the life cycle. This is at a point where you're trying to see what is feasible, you're trying to define the mission. In the situation that you're talking about, actually what will happen is we know that we have always a bit more fuel on the satellite than what we need, what we design for, because we take margins. There, you just extend the mission as much as you can to make sure that the resource that you have on board still allows you to make the mission feasible for a long time. Okay?
Well, thank you very much. So we are going to move on with how to bring back space exploration excitement with Marc Toussaint. And in room B, you have two topics. It's how you can make actually space stuff, and then the impact of ESA educational programs.
So good morning once more to all of you. So this morning I will present to you something completely different to what we were talking yesterday about the launcher and Ariane family. Maybe as all of you, I'm also a space dreamer, and what I would like to do is to bring an idea is how to bring the space exploration excitement to people. So why this question is because somewhere, if you look in the past, so you see quite a lot of small movies, nothing was more exciting than the space race. It started in 1957 with the launch of Sputnik. It was followed very quickly after by the launch of the first man in space, Yuri Gagarin. As you can see, all of these small movies. Then the race started between the two blocks because we were, and most of the people often forget that the Cold War was the world environment. So there was a big race and fight between the East Bloc and the West Bloc. So soon after Gagarin flight, the American John Glenn could go in space. But very quickly, because at that time the most important thing was the first. Always bring a new first in space. And so came the flight of Valentina Tereshkova. It was the 16th of June 1963, which means within 3 weeks, we will celebrate the 50th anniversary of Valentina Tereshkova's flight. But it continues. A woman in space was not enough, so the Russian went on with the first EVA activity performed by Alexei Leonov, just a few weeks before the first flight of the Gemini space vehicle, and also just 2 months before the American performed also the first EVA. And then came the rush of all those Gemini flights where people could really feel the competition ongoing between the East and the West Bloc. So what you're seeing on this first slide is really what we call at that time the space race. Now it went further on because also after the space race, what came out was the moon race. Everybody moved from one domain to another more exciting domain. Will there be a race? Who will be the first to walk on the moon? And what you see there are pictures explaining you why, on one side, one lost completely the race and the other one succeeded. Because the Soviets couldn't qualify their big launcher compared to what the Americans were doing with Saturn V. The N1 exploded 4 times in 4 trials where the Saturn V succeeded. And this led to the major success of Apollo 11. Maybe most of you are perhaps too young to remember what was Apollo 11, but you should imagine that at that time, for the first time, all television in the world retransmitted Neil Armstrong's first minutes or even second when he went down from the land down to the moon. And then it continued. To the surprise to everybody, the moon was so easy to reach, was so easy to visit, because all Apollo missions follow one after the other. What you will see after is one of the well-known scenes of the Apollo 16 mission when John Young tried to explain to people what it means to be in 1/6 of a G. You see him jumping in front of the American flag. At Apollo 17, it was also really amazing. You see Schmidt and Cernan, the 2 last walking on the moon and enjoying being there, just walking, jumping, and, you know, last mission, unfortunately in December 1972. The good thing is, despite this moon race and this Cold War situation, the 2 succeeded to perform a flight together. This was the Apollo-Soyuz mission, in a way precursor to what we are today living with this completely new cooperation in space between most of the spacefaring countries. It was very impressive. It was motivating and exciting for all the people because things were happening, things were visible, things were transmitted through all the multimedia system available by that time. After, things changed completely. Why? It's because there were no more space exploration. Everything took place around the Earth. You had, at least it was still the Cold War, so the small movie you see there is the military space station developed by the Russian, because space stations were also aiming at military application. And then on top you see the start of all the Salyut flights, which in the end led to the construction of big modular space station in space, Mir, and after the ISS. On the other side, the Americans also maintained the manned flight activities around the Earth because they started the shuttle program. As you know, the shuttle is by far the most beautiful, the more high technology space vehicle ever built and flying in space. Perhaps it was a bit lacking some final qualification because it remains a prototype and they had 2 major failures, which at the end led to the stop of the program. Now, what were the media doing at the time? The media were not talking about people being in space. They were talking about accident, catastrophic event when they happened. I will not show you any explosion. I will not show you the blow-up of Challenger or the destruction of Columbia. This is against excitement. So if you look at all those activities at that time, it means people were just uninformed, not informed about what's happening in space. Could you imagine then when Mir was in space, there was between October 89 until October 99, 10 years of continuous presence of Russian or Soviet and after Russian cosmonaut in space, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and nearly nobody was talking about it over 10 years. You see some example of, as Jean-François showed to you yesterday, how messy Mir was inside. You see the small video. Indeed, it was you will see at the end, the shuttle flight when he was on board. What you see there is also a sequence where we had our astronauts, Thomas Reiter, spending 6 months in the Mir station. And even at the time, I think most of the information was only focused in Germany, not all around Europe, because interest for space presence was not so exciting. Shuttle flights. You've had up to 135 shuttle flights. And do you remember having seen launch of shuttle at the TV? Maximum 10 seconds when you just ignite engines, lift off. And after, maybe 10 days after or 1 week after, oh, the shuttle has landed, the mission is over. But nobody talking about it because there was no willingness to just put forward what those people were doing, unless one representative from one country was up and doing something, because then the interest was there. So where are we today? Today what do we have is also the, I would say perhaps the second most technology and advanced system ever built in space, the International Space Station. Now also just one comment, if you talk to the Russians, they will tell you that this is a second International Space Station, because Mir was the first one. Indeed, they are right. If you look at all the non-Soviet, non-Russian cosmonaut or astronaut visiting Mir in the past, but nobody was talking about. This one, even it started in November 1998. It started to build, which means, let me count, 15 years ago, roughly. And do you get often views, information on what's happening in the International Space Station? Never. Or from time to time, the same logic. Someone is there, it's interesting for one country, so the media in one country will make event, they will talk about it. So we just put forward the information through television. But, and this was discussed yesterday, maybe something is changing. Something is changing slowly because we have it. And it was interesting to listen to what was said yesterday afternoon. I had already prepared a slide yesterday, so I was just waiting for today to bring it back on table. What Atfil had done is really to bring space down to Earth. What really was a major change in communication. And I don't want to repeat all what was said, but using the available internet communication, all the means that you have and I have through computers, through iPhone, iPad. I'm Mac-minded, not PC. But so I talk about what I have. You could just follow this mission. You could get all those small videos. This is only a picture. I didn't want to put all the videos once more. You can get that now straight to YouTube or any site where you get all this information. So something has changed. Everybody has got a means to get information, to communicate, and perhaps to do something when something's happening in space. So let's go to some quick question. Does space still excite people? Yes. Astronomy, for example. Just take 5 or 10 minutes time to talk to children or a school of young people about astronomy. You will see the reaction, you will see the eyes, you will see the question. Something is still exciting for them. Does space tourism excite people? Yes, if they can afford it, which means they would like to, but they realize that just to make a jump after 100 kilometers will cost something like 200,000 euro. To spend 8 days or 10 days in the space station will cost you $25, $35 million. How can you afford this? So does manned spaceflight excite people? Yes, but it remains a dream, because they realize the barrier between being on Earth and going in space. They like to listen to what astronauts are telling, or as stories, or just what they've done there. But it's not something which they realize they could one day do or even perform. Do Mars trip and or settlement excite people? Yes, talk about Mars, but do they know the truth? What does it mean to go to Mars? What does it mean to stand on Mars? Does the moon still excite people? Oh yes, and not only for romanticism. If you just ask people to spend time outside when there is a moon eclipse, which is quite regular, they will just go and look at it. When the sun eclipse is taking place, it's even more attractive for all people. Does people live with permanent connection? Oh yes, and this is an example. Your SpaceUp is really based on this technology. Through internet, Twitter, all the means we have, they communicate. But the question is also, does it help people to feel involved, recognize? Oh yes, because I just discussed with someone yesterday evening, and I got the information that she sent tweets to Hatfield in space. She didn't know if he listened or read it or answered to it, but at least the switch between accessing or not people in space trigger the interest to communicate. Now comes the question, does competition excite people? Oh yes, a lot. Just look at car racing, bicycle racing, Olympic Games. You get millions involved just for people looking at TV, how people compete against each other. So why not to set up a space race with direct people involvement, where people could just participate? This is a question which I wanted to bring to you. Now, of course, the next question is what? So the proposal is a rover raised over the moon, where from equatorial landing toward the poles. When? In 2019, because it will be a good opportunity to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the first man going to the moon. Now, of course, and I know, this is a not new idea. It has been pushed in the past. But unfortunately, for the last 10 years, nobody has been really implementing this type of ideas. For example, if you look at all the landing sites on the moon where historical space elements remains, you see quite a lot. You see project, how it was proposed, for example, to use not advanced, but qualified available technology to land on the moon, to bring a rover on the moon. And you see also different target, which has been, from past activity and analysis, have been identified for racing. For example, where Luna 21 with Lunar Hot 2 remains and Apollo 17 site. There is something which excites people. It's a Lunar Google X Prize. But the main problem with this competition is you have to find the tickets to fly to the moon. You have to build a lander, very high dangerous technology because you deal with advanced propulsion, risk of losing your mission in 1 second. And you have to build a rover which has to survive the landing and do something. Today, and after 5 or 10 years of thinking about this, perhaps only one competitor will go on board a Chinese rocket end of this year toward the moon, but it doesn't mean he will be able to land because he'll have to qualify it and demonstrate the landing. The lander, is operational, and his rover will be operational. So what I'm just showing to you is an idea. Why not conceive something where one Ariane launch with one lander would bring a series of rovers on the moon with 2 targets, the poles, over a 1-year time frame. Now, when you talk about rovers, of course, you could imagine that small countries will work together to build one. Benelux, the Scandinavian countries, and also the big countries will have to have their flags on the rovers. But the most important thing is each rover could carry a standard small package for scientific analysis. So at least, you know, there could be some scientific institute involved in the activity. But the most important one is you could ask in each country that there's school, university, or even at home, people could follow, could be involved, could do something during this race. Now, when you're landing on the equatorial side of the moon, and if you go to the North or South Pole, it looks like a very big trip. Just make a small computation. It's like one way 870 kilometers from equatorial landing site to, let's say, the South Pole. Now, you know that on the moon you have 2 weeks daytime, 2 weeks nighttime. So it means over 1 year you have only 180 days when you can really run. But if you divide the distance by the number of days, it means on average a 5 kilometer a day will bring you from the landing site to the pole within 1 year time frame. And 1 year has already been demonstrated by other rovers. Lunokhod 1, the first to land on the moon, lived and survived more than a year on the moon. So these ideas, if you translate it to what people could do, would look like this. You would have the capability at a given time to do something with a rover. Within each country, a center could allocate time slot for people interested in this activity, just to say, look, you have the right to move the rover a few distance at a given speed. And they would do it and record it either in their work or at home or wherever they want, they get internet access. It may be a dream, but I believe this would be a type of easy way to bring a lot of excitement back to the people, because it's something which seems to be reachable, affordable. Now, thank you for your attention. Of course, I don't know if you have some time to share that ideas with me. I keep one slide back after the discussion to show you. So I will show you another slide just after the discussion. Do you have any ideas, or do you want to share this idea? Yes.
I just want to pick up on a point that you said earlier when you were talking about the shuttle missions and the space station and why we don't see it in the news. I think that a lot of the blame gets put on the media because they don't care, but the space agencies themselves need to think about the way they communicate the science. I know there's a lot of politics involved, so for example with the shuttle or any space travel, it's important that they make out that it's safe, that it's okay to put government money into these schemes, it's not going to be a disaster. But sometimes they go so far that it's so bland, this is happening, we've done it 100 times, it's fine, which is why when there are the disasters, that's where suddenly everybody is like, a thing happened, and they're like, NASA, they're so clever, and they did something bad, and it becomes a story. So maybe if the agencies allowed their astronauts or their people to be more open about the risks and make sure that people realize, okay, we've been doing this for a while now, but when you're sitting on a rocket, that's still dangerous.
I'm working with rockets, and of course rockets are dangerous because it's a controlled bomb. When you put men on top of a rocket, of course you take and you do whatever is needed to guarantee a safe flight to space, and even the vehicle you bring to space should be safe enough so they just survive re-entry and landing. I think the question on how to show the return of investment that we do on activities like manned spaceflight. I work on Columbus for many years, and I raise myself the question is, what is the product coming out of the activities we are doing in space? It's very hard to sell. Why? It's because what we do is fundamental research. We are just discovering a new world. People discovered space so many years ago, but they don't know yet what they can do with space. It's just like all the research laboratories which do fundamental research now with a product which will not come before the next 10 or 20 years from now. And this is roughly what you can imagine it's happening in the space station. They do a lot of activities in all possible domains, but the return which would be visible to people is not from no one. It's for the next 5, 10 years. Maybe one day people will say, look, there is a Nobel Prize, and we know the origin is a search from something done in the space station 20 years before. So it's true, it's difficult to sell and to maintain the excitement of manned spaceflight. I remember I've just looked on one of your SpaceUp video where one of the guys was talking about space is boring. NASA is boring. And I really believe that the reason why it become boring is because we have no more this competition, this race. Racing is something which attracts people interest. I still repeat, car racing, bicycle, Olympic Games are things where you get so much money just for 1 or 2 weeks or one event, and people look at it. Yes?
Talking back about the rover race, so it could be interesting, but maybe what would be to get some excitement is to make more small pieces of races, because waiting for 1 year, the people will be interested at the beginning and maybe we will hear at the end. But maybe like the Tour de France or Olympic Games, preparing some intermediate challenge on the way to the final destination. So, for example, one day there is one step and there is one speed race, or another one is they need to take 3 different kinds of material over the moon, or trying to make the overall mission more short, because what the people want today is something immediate, that they can, okay, I start to take it today and I don't want to wait for 1 year until it's finished. Maybe.
The idea is not to have all the rovers racing together. The idea is to have each rover deciding for his own way, even going another way, as I saw that there are different ways to go from the equatorial landing site to the pole. The idea is to have each rover linked to one country, one network, national network, where people could just decide where to go, decide what to do, and on national basis, it's not a 1 year time to wait to get a result. On a daily basis, when you have this daytime, you could just, the day being 15 days of hers before you move in the nighttime. Nighttime you can't race, you have to wait. But at least it gives you 15 days every month where things could be broadcast, things could be shown on TV, or even other countries could say, look where they are, look the way they have followed, or maybe one rover breaks down. And for the others, they could just say, we have a chance to win because we are less in competition, just like with the car racing. But I don't want to have things racing together. It's like all going its own way, decided by people.
Where the people would poll, so today, where do we go, left, right, or?
No, let's say there will be on national basis a center just trying to harmonize the way where to go, and then people will get the chance to follow the path defined by a country, and then you get this time slot when you can say, yes, I move these 2 meters, the example I showed just before. You see, people get the chance to, from home, from where they work, from where they are. They get a time slot and say, it's up to you now. You can just say, yes, you move, how long would you go? And then it's yes, no, and it's recorded so they can keep track of what they've done. It's really to bring people back to the space operation. At least they could just follow what they are doing on the rover, which is on the moon. And why the moon? Because it's only 1.2 second time to go there. So you can still communicate. Time to go, time to come back. You get the pictures. Yes?
So you've mentioned the Google Lunar X Prize, and I went to their conference a couple of years ago in the Isle of Man, and I had never heard anything about it. And when I found out, whoa, you're building robots to send to the moon that are going to move around, that's amazing. But no, why doesn't anybody know about it? So I think there is a problem. You know, they're already having a competition. Who can get to the moon first? There's a space race for you. So before we think about putting rovers on the moon, it's a great idea, I like it, but how do we tell everybody that that's happening? I mean, they've got Google backing, and they're going to the moon with rovers. That's cool. Why don't we know more?
From what I could feel on the Lunar Google X Prize competition, the main issues is a barrier to go to the moon. To find your tickets, how will you send your lander rover to go there? Every year I'm lecturing in a university when I ask my students to make a project, just like if you would be part of the competition, so they study the landers, the rover, but they always come back to me and say, how do we go there? And I had to find a solution, say, yes, you will have a Soyuz launch from Kourou with capability to land your rover, or to go to the moon, and perhaps to land. So they feel it's achievable. Now the question is how to motivate people. It would be to put in place a program where you would ask the different people from the European countries, because what I've given there is one example, perhaps through ESA, but I cannot decide for ESA today because the process to put such a program in place. And then on national basis, each country could advertise, ask university to participate, use which technology they want to build to do this type of racing between rover.
But the problem that you say there is that, you know, the problem is getting to the moon. But I think that's a problem if you already know about the competition, if you're involved in it and you're thinking about it. I'm saying the problem is the public, anybody, they don't even know that competition is running.
Okay, time is running. So people would be educated because they know one day they will have the capability to follow and participate. So you could educate people long in advance before you start your race on the moon.
If I could just say one thing, I think it's popularity sells. So there are many popular people also in science who are big on TV and people know them. So we need to use them more also as an outreach channel.
Could be. Just to show you the picture I want to maintain up to the end. What means excitement? You see this picture is something which I was very lucky and fortunate to live. This is Valentina Tereshkova in 1966, visiting Belgium. And I got a chance that my mother at that time had to organize the visit. And you see the small guy in the back. It's me. So look at the eyes. I didn't know when the picture was taken. I was already so excited by all these, you know, astronauts, and it's there, just in front of me. This is something which I would like to live again or to see again. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, so it's how to bring space professionals together, and in the other room, it's about the Netherlands Innovate Education Program, and then help I go out of space.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome everybody. 1 second, please.
No, you don't lift it.
Okay, I was looking forward to that all weekend, so. Are we ready? Everybody here? Okay, let's just start. So, welcome everybody. My name is Ingo Gerth. I'm a student at Delft University of Technology, and here's my colleague
Jacco Geul, also a student.
And yeah, we founded a society we called Fis Viva, which means living force. And some of you might know this because it's a very important equation in astrodynamics. But it also has a kind of symbolic meaning, which is why we picked this as a name for our society. So what we want to do now is introduce this society to you, make you interested in what it is, hear a bit about, from you about other societies you might be involved in, and explore how we can bring people together, because that was our vision for this. So let me start by kind of giving a background, how we came up with this idea and why we did it. So in the beginning of 2012, a group of enthusiastic space students from our university was working on going to the Global Space Exploration Conference in Washington. So that's kind of where they define the roadmap for space exploration. Well, I can tell you, unfortunately, it didn't happen because it was too expensive. But what we learned during that is that it's really great to bring enthusiastic space people together, a bit like here at SpaceUp, but then more on a local level. And we definitely wanted to continue this endeavor. So that's why we thought about how can we keep this up, how can we keep going. And we had many brainstorming sessions. We also, Jacco and I, attended SpaceUp Europe. And from that kind of, we developed this concept that we have for Fis Viva now, that Jacco will also introduce more to you later. And here you can actually see Jacco, how he gave a nice presentation on signals into the unknown at SpaceUp Europe. And yeah, so what we really do is bringing space enthusiasts together. And in this picture, you already see a few elements that are very important to us. Namely, you can see we're doing this in a bar, so we are not doing it in a formal setting like university or ESA HQ, but no, in a bar, and you see drinks on the table. We are very open, and somebody usually gives a talk. You can just jump in whenever you have a question, have drinks while giving talks, and that's how we do it. So if you want to have a mission statement for our society, it's to provide a professional spaceflight forum to unite, to teach and learn, and to explore. And these last three sub-sentences are really what we want to do. Bring people together, unite, teach, because from each other we learn by giving presentations, and finally to explore, because we love space and we love to explore and learn more about spaceflight. So why do we do this? Let me point this out for a minute. In our opinion, and it's the opinion of most of our members, we live in the most exciting time since Apollo. Sometimes I think we're whining too much, looking back at Apollo, and everybody is only thinking, okay, Apollo was so awesome, the astronauts went to the moon, and that's true. But we have to look forward, and I think at the moment we see a revolution in spaceflight. We see so much changing, we see the cost of space missions decreasing, we see new space companies, we have amazing exploration missions going on, and we think it's the most exciting time since Apollo. But, second point, sometimes we lose track. We forget about this in our everyday lives. So we want to share this enthusiasm with each other and do that also by talking to other fellows and stay up to date like that. And exactly that's what we try to do. We try to form a community to do exactly that. So now, if you want to put that into 2 words, we want to inspire. And here you see a cool picture that we like. It shows the moon as if it was inhabited. So I think it's a cool picture. And Jacco will now tell you more about our ideas and how we do it.
Thank you, Inge. Maybe you can start there. So when we were founding our society, we really were thinking about how should we do this. We were looking at other societies, and I think one of the main elements where we differ from other societies is that we are extremely member-centric. Not only do our members provide content at our regular events, just like you guys present content to to this event as such a conference, but we also want our members to shape Fis Viva. We have a board, but it has more a guiding role than a shaping role. We also want Fis Viva to be very diverse. It's one of our most important values. We want to be represented by scientists, engineers, politicians, policymakers. I mean, any profession related to space, we want them to be in Fis Viva. And only if we have such a way we can learn more from each other, because you can really get a multidisciplinary view from things, and you get very interesting discussions that way. And here you actually see two of our members, of our first members. On the left, Susanna Di Reto. She's a molecular, or actually microbiologist, had a PhD on the life detection on Mars. And to the right, a fellow master student of us, Sander van Oers, who did some work on data analysis for the Messenger spacecraft to Mercury. But how do we do this? Well, one of our core activities are these regular informal meetings that Inge already told you about. Basically, it's a small SpaceUp every 2 weeks. The format is maybe slightly different. We have these meetings in the evening at a bar with a beer, as Inge already said. But we have then 2 presentations in such an evening by our own members, more specifically people that want to become members, not have to, but can organize an event, and amongst others that's giving a presentation to the fellow members of the society. And the format of such a talk is that we have continuous discussion going on. If you have a question or want to elaborate on the subject, you just interrupt, and it's actually very nice. It works out really well. So what kind of topics do we have? Engineering, science, policy, but also recent developments, such as what's going on in space at the moment. We had several news roundups where we just discuss everything that's been going on in space for the last month. Oh yeah, so what kind of topics did we have so far? We had a really interesting two session on space debris. We had something on Mars. Mars is actually a topic that always comes back, of course. And we had interesting topic on long wavelength folding on Mercury. We had a slide for that, but it just, conversion, got rid of it. But we don't stop there. We want to do other events. These informal events are mostly for our members. They're, I wouldn't say closed, but we also want to have some events that have bigger outreach. For instance, symposia. We had our first symposium in February. It was actually our kickoff for the society. It was a great success. We had Susanna Di Reto, who gave a talk on the life detection in Mars. She liked our idea so much that she became our first member, which is really nice. We had Adam Stelzner, who you all know as the father of the Sky Crane, from JPL joining in, giving a talk about that. But we also want to do other things, like a mission design workshop and practical workshops. Say, build your own weather balloon or something like that. We have a movie night coming up at ESTEC, ESA Netherlands, on June 26th. So if you're around, if you want to join, please do, let us know. And who knows, maybe SpaceUp Delft in the future. That would be very interesting. We'll talk about that. Oh, this is the slide of the long wavelength folding that was missing. And that's the symposium. So what about the future? Well, first of all, we want to grow and diversify in the Netherlands. We believe that we need a strong basis in Leiden and Delft. And by diversify, we mean academia versus professionals. All different kind of professions should be represented within within Fis Viva, and also a healthy balance between students and professionals. But we're also keeping our eyes open internationally. We would love if there's somebody around here that wants to set up a Fis Viva chapter locally somewhere, but we also think it's great if we could collaborate with other societies, because there's so much going on, and together we can do just much more. So if you're interested, if you're in the Netherlands, Delft, anytime, let us know. We would love to invite you for one of our bi-weeklies. Maybe, who knows, we'll have the next person who will found the Fis Viva chapter somewhere in Europe or anywhere else. And yeah, about that, I mean, we have put a lot of thought and time into this, so we would be very open to actually sharing our ideas and collaborating with you if you're interested in setting something up. I'll give the mic to Inga now.
Okay, sure, thanks, Jacco. So actually, in the United States, there's even interest about that. Somebody from Kansas University wants to found a chapter, so we're growing, so that's a great thing, I think, because it's always better to have more space people and bring them together. And yeah, so if anybody of you lives in the Netherlands or works at ESTEC, June 26th, we show the cool movie Orphans of Apollo. It's a very cool story. It's about people who wanted to buy the Mir space station before it was deorbited. And yeah, it's amazing. And next Wednesday, also, if you want to join, we have a meeting in Delft, so in case anybody is there. But that is the official end of our talk. But what we're interested in now is maybe if somebody of you is already engaged in some kind of society, tell us a bit about that. Maybe we can talk about organizing something together in the future or ways of collaboration. Or if you have just more questions about what we are doing, or whether you would maybe have a look at it and think about setting up something like this on your own, you're also very welcome. So just shoot.
If I may start. A question, why did you found a new society rather than an SEDS chapter or joining SJC in their activities?
Okay, well, that we of course explored all these possibilities beforehand, but the setup that we have is very different. I mean, the SJC, for example, they operate mostly internationally via Hangouts and everything, but we think it's extremely important to engage on a local level, to really get lively discussions, and it's just nicer to bring people together on a table, and yeah. And also, for example, what other societies we saw is that they are rather board-centric, so the board is very active, they organize most of the events, but what we like is interaction between members, and we want to have a society where every member counts and is equal. So to that end, for example, we do not have one president who would seem like a very powerful person, but we have actually two co-chairmen, like in ancient Rome, to have kind of a balance of powers, you know, because it's important to us that everybody can shape the society if he wants to. So also all the decisions that we make, we try to be as democratic as possible. And that's just a very different setup. So we thought this would be a better idea. And we're steadily growing, and people love what we do, at least those that join. And so, yeah, that's great.
Okay, two more comments, if I may, because I happen to be Dutch, so I will be joining your events at some point. First of all, I'm also a member of the Dutch Space Society.
Yeah,
so NVR, so are you? That's
yeah.
Where we met a few times before. I would really like to explore together with the NVR board if there's something we can do in organizing events together. And secondly, SpaceUp Delft, yay.
Yay.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do one.
Let's do it together with the NVR. Why not? Or in Leiden maybe, or ESTEC, I don't know. So, I think we have a very international crowd here, so I would be interested how you guys organize yourselves on a local level in other countries. Are there well, you've heard of the Austrian Space Forum. They're, of course, much bigger, very cool. Something like that we don't really have in the Netherlands. But how's it here, for example, in France? What do you do?
Actually, in France, and the Austrian Space Forum is like in France, there's the French branch of the Mars Society. Yeah. You know, the Mars Society has branches about, well, in many countries in Europe. So in Austria, the Austrian Space Forum is the Austrian Mars Society, but you have in France the Association Planète Mars,
okay,
which is so the French branch of the Mars Society. And you have in the UK, in Germany, in Poland, in Bulgaria, in Spain, in Italy, I think you also have branches for the Mars Society. That can be one organization to organize locally, or to coalesce around.
We even had a Mars Society in the Netherlands, but I think they split up and they're now called the Mars Foundation. But also they're very active.
This is very cool, but do you also have something where you bring together people from different branches of spaceflight? Because I say this is very focused on Mars. So is there anything else? So maybe you're interested?
The logo, la 3AF that we see behind you, isn't it already an association like that? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, so AAAF is well, it's a French well, non-profit organization. Oh, it's Association Aéronautique et Astronautique de France. Yeah, I mean, before it was AAAF, and now it's AAAF, but it's easier. I mean, it's the equivalent of the AIAA in the US.
Oh, that's very nice.
But it's limited to France.
Oh, well, that does matter.
Yeah, it's a bit. It's just that it's located in France, but they have a huge. Well, they can coordinate with other society like the Royal Aeronautical Society. So they have different common presentations and common events.
Thank you.
I think nobody mentioned the British Interplanetary Society also. So I think that's also an organization that's trying to group like-minded people around space.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I did not listen to everything, but Society of Space Professionals, I mean, I have to be a space professional to join?
Professional is a broad, in the most broad sense. I mean, we ourselves are students. We don't actually earn an income or work for a space agency, but yet we still consider ourselves professional because it's our main occupation. We work 40+ hours a week on space. We are actively involved in it. So in that sense, professional, yes.
We still have time for maybe one or two questions. So, and then we will go for lunch. But first, you have to do questions because no lunch, no question, no lunch. So please, one or two questions.
Okay, I'm really hungry, so.
Thanks.
One question. I don't know if you've seen the example. You do these 2 weekly meetings at a bar. That is very much what CNES does together with my science work. I don't know. They're here. They're probably in the other room. Sorry, but they do that every month in Café du Pont Neuf here in Paris. Okay. The good thing about the CNES tweet-ups, that's what they call them. So they're co-organized by CNES and my science work, is that they use social media, again, to involve a large circle of people outside of those meetings. Is that something that you're considering or even doing at the moment?
So Remco, I think we have to invite you to one of our meetings to talk about social media.
That's actually what I meant. So.
Okay, perfect. Well, yeah, we have a Twitter feed. We also have Facebook, Google+, and we keep everything up to date. So if you want to find us, just Google Society Fis Viva and follow us if you're interested. So if you're all hungry, I think thanks for your attention. You can go for lunch, I think.